Welcome to the Ladies Lounge.
Welcome. I'm your homegirl, Carmen.
And I'm your girl, Lina.
And we took a little break, but we back. We have been a little busy, you know. Angie's been traveling a lot back and forth, going to LA. And then because the world's like opening up again, I feel like we got hit with like, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. Here's an opportunity for this. Right?
Mm-hmm. Or I think for me, it's more like the streets is calling my name. Like, I'm just kind of like ready to like get out the house, you know?
And you do, you're like, I'm there.
With the mask on.
I'm going to be there. I was like, Angie, that's the third weekend you've gone to LA. You're like, I know. So you just be going and coming back too, like go and come back. But our schedules have been off. And I know people have reached out to us to ask us like, you guys aren't being consistent lately, but it's as the world opens up, like it's going to be harder for us to maintain a schedule. But we thank you for listening and continuing to spread the word and reaching out to us. When you guys hit us up and ask us, where the hell are we? We appreciate that. Like we don't get offended. Like we appreciate sharing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So what have you been up to? Because the people want to know what you've been up to.
So I have a few projects that I'm working on right now. One of them is for a like millennial meetup where one of my homegirls, basically, she wants to do like this networking event where, you know, people who are millennials go and network and, you know, just get out the house. Basically, everything's opening up, like you said. I think a lot of people are in that position where they need to either change a career or they need to find a new job or whatever. So networking is definitely a good thing to do, especially in LA. So we've been working on that. And then, I have other few projects that I've been, you know, helping out with and working on. Let me see what else. I'm trying to think. Like, I feel like we've been so busy.
I know.
Oh, I started working out like 2 times a day. So I've been
shout out to Angie because it's one of those things where she started working out and wasn't like announcing it to the world. And I think you did that shit because you're like, if I put pressure on myself, I ain't gonna do it. So let me just not. And then I was like as I hit her up random times, she'd be like, oh yeah, I just got done working out. And I was like, wait the fuck a minute. You've been working out and ain't been telling me to motivate me. But yeah, even today, I was like, hey, so we good for this time? And she was like, yeah, girl, I'm just like my gym clothes. I was like, all right, bitch, you're doing too much. I'm over here fodonga as fuck. Like I need to get it together. I have lost weight without fully working out. And then you and I committed to going on hikes too.
Yes.
So that's going to be happening, but I'm proud of you, girl. You have been on it. You've been doing 2 a day sometimes too, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So this morning I woke up and I went to go play tennis, and I think you had went with us like one day.
And that shit was hard.
Yeah, it's not an easy sport. So, you know, you definitely have to be really like, you have to know how to be accurate with the ball, you know, when it comes to you, how to hit it back, where to hit it, you know, being able to sprint really fast. So it's work. And I started noticing like it's hard for me to like keep up sometimes. So I figured, hey, you know what, let me just get in the gym. Let me, you know, get my strength training going. And then, you know, it's great cardio too. So it helps. I mean, we have our challenge. I think, you know what, I've been thinking about this. We should do like a ladies only challenge or like accountability where us and our lady listeners, we hold each other accountable. Like, hey, well, did you get your steps in today? Or did you at least go to the gym today? Or did you do some kind of, I think it'll be good.
It helps like, because we're already in a group, right? But with that, we feel the pressure. And so honestly, when I look at my steps and I start counting, I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, I already know I'm going to be judged by you guys. Cause you're like, bitch, we all got to do the same steps. And then sometimes you'll have those days too, but it does make you be like, get up real quick, go on the treadmill. Like I have no excuse. I have a treadmill. So even if I didn't get my steps in, I should have no fucking reason to just jump on a treadmill and get the steps in. But I just learned something from TikTok.
What?
Apparently, you know how like when you look at the steps, and this is for anyone who's counting steps, because I know a lot of people are doing this, that if you look where your steps are on the circle, and like it tells you how many steps are, he's like, that's not really how many steps you have. She's like, even if you have them counted on your watch, it's somewhere below. So I'm trying to figure out where, but she basically said you click where your steps are.
Okay.
Look at the bottom number. Oh, it's on our phone thing. No excuse. I have a treadmill. So even if I didn't get my steps in, I should have no fucking reason to just jump on a treadmill and get the steps in. But I just learned something from TikTok.
What?
apparently, you know how like when you look at the steps, and this is for anyone who's counting steps, because I know a lot of people are doing this,
Mhm.
that if you look where your steps are, on the circle,
Mhm.
and like it tells you how many steps are, he's like, that's not really how many steps you have. She's like, she said, even if you have them counted on your watch, it's
Yeah.
somewhere below. So I'm trying to figure out where, but she basically said you click where your steps are, and
Okay.
you look at the bottom number. Oh, it's on our phone, on our phone thing. But
Okay,
I'm gonna
now you're making me want to look.
yeah, no, I'm gonna find the video, and I'm
Okay.
gonna have our guy insert it for sure, because I thought it was very informative, and I meant to send it to you, but I was probably too off the dome before I go to sleep. Because that's the thing, I think I've been open about this before here, but like I'm not a functional smoker. I just started smoking during quarantine, and that I'm not an Angie, but I just started smoking during quarantine because I had a really hard time sleeping. I
Mhm.
was taking ZQuil, and it just had me drowsy in the morning. I was
Yeah.
taking melatonin, and then that at some point stopped working. So I was like,
Yep.
what's the natural way for me to sleep? And you're like, bitch, smoke. And I was like, you right. So I actually got on the I started off with the pain, which by the way was so hard for me, because I was like, girl, are you choking? And you're like, no. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? So it was because I wasn't like, but now I'm like a pro. So now I get lit before I go to sleep, and there's no like, you can't tell me, hey, can you go do something for me? Because hell no, I'm off limits. Yeah.
Mhm.
You, on the other hand, you can function with the shit. I can't. You a runner, you a track star, like not me. Like when we'll do, Angie and I will do things like, run errands and stuff. She wants to smoke. I'm like, how? I already be like you. And you're like, girl, it's like, I guess you're done. And she does. It's like
I do.
I never actually know when you're high, to be honest. I
I'm high
don't.
right now.
You're high right now. Listen, I would never know. Like, you really
Yeah.
can't tell. You're a functionable like pothead, which is, I think it's to each his own. I used to be in high school. I told you right. I used to smoke all the time. And I
Right.
and
Right.
I thought I was a functionable pothead, but I fucking wasn't. I know I was a hot mess, but it is what it is. So anyway, I started smoking again, and like that really
Yeah.
has helped me. But anyway, back to the step things. I'm gonna post that
Oh yeah.
video so you can see, because I think
Okay.
you and I have shorted each other out without realizing it. But no, we probably got our steps in and didn't realize there's a trick. So there's actually a number of steps, but the correct one is the bottom one, and it's like literally double of what we think we did, because it's not
What?
technically counting every step. Your phone and your watch can only know so much. And
Right.
so it'll count what it captures, but the real number on the bottom is what you actually did. So,
What? That's crazy. I mean, that was kind of like what happened remember when we went to hike
yeah.
and your steps were like way more than
Off.
mine. We were like, that's
Yep.
so weird.
Yep.
So either when you wake up in the morning, you're a little crackhead and you run around like,
Right.
or I don't know, it was just weird, but something was off and we could
Yeah.
tell because
We
we had
noticed it.
walked the same distance and everything.
And
So
we did
that
about the
makes sense.
same, because we both got up and just got ready. We didn't go anywhere else. We both got up, got ready, and did the same thing. We both looked at our steps. We were way off. And I was
Yeah.
like, there's no way. We are literally doing the same thing. I doubt your car is far away from your house. Like, your
Right.
car's right in front of your house. So yeah, it
Mhm.
didn't make any sense. So I
Yeah.
figured it out. I'm going to have him roll the clip.
Okay, Apple Watch users, you need to stop and watch this video. Okay, so you know how you are working out in your day or you're just burning calories and you're like, damn, I only burned like 700 calories today. Stop. You burned so much more. For example, ladies or gentlemen, if you're watching this, go to your activity app and click on this right here. You know how it shows it burned, like how you burned 720 or goal 720 and you burned 511? You've actually burned 2,015 calories. That's how many I burned today, and I didn't even run today. Now let's look at the other days that I ran. So Saturday, I ran a mile and a half, and I thought I only burned 720 calories. Newsflash, burned 2,500. So now I don't need to starve myself thinking that I only burned 700 calories today. I actually can do the right diet. So I don't know, comment if you didn't know this.
But anyway, so I know that we have been through some shit, and this episode we kind of wanted to focus on taking you back to a time where we talked about taking a break. Angie and I decided to do stop the season because there was a lot that was going on between us. So I want to fill you guys in on that and why we actually had to take a break, because it wasn't just because we wanted to. It was a lot that I was dealing with. And I actually wasn't thinking of stopping until Andrew was like, yo, like if you want to take a break, we could take a break. And then I was like, because you feel like you go into this business, and by business, I mean this project that we have with our podcast that we really take, seriously. This is something that we're passionate about and we want to continue, want to be consistent with. But I didn't want to let you down. And then when you told me, like, listen, this is important, but your health is more important, I was like, you know what? Let's do that. So towards the end, you can't really tell, but I was going through a lot, and we're going to dive into that. But there was a really important thing that Angie had recently went through. And I was like, we got to talk about this because we are both parents, and we're not saying we're perfect, but we try to manage and be as cordial as possible. And especially to be cordial with someone who isn't cordial is hard. When you're co-parenting with someone who's not cordial, there's a lot of people who are like, well, it's not me, it's them. We get
Mhm.
you, because we have both been through that. We still go through that. So I think what you just recently endured, which I didn't know, I don't know too many details, I think we need to talk about that. So what's
For
going
sure.
on?
So, I mean, you guys know we've talked about my marriage and, the toxic relationship that I had. And, unfortunately, he hasn't been a part of our daughter's life. So I basically have been raising her on my own, of course, with my family's help. But she basically feels like she has all the love she needs. She has me, she has her grandparents, she has, her relatives. And a lot of my family are, like family to, or a lot of my friends are like family too. So she's surrounded by love. But recently, her grandma on her dad's side reached out to her and, wants to talk to her. And of course, she got emotional about it. And I feel really bad because I feel like kind of stuck in the middle. Like I want her to have a relationship with her dad and his family, but at the same time, they never really tried to have a relationship with her.
And you don't want to
So
force her. You don't want to feel like you're forcing her to do this,
exactly.
right?
And you know what? I was actually, because I'm a big Real Housewives of Atlanta fan. So I was watching. Do you remember Drew Sidora from The Game?
No.
Really? Do you remember when he cheated on Melanie with the singer, the R&B singer?
No.
Oh my
I
gosh. Okay.
probably do. I probably do, because Drew, I remember like
We used to watch
the
it all the
drama
time. Do you
behind it,
remember?
but yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So we were like obsessed with Derwin. And
Oh
so
yes, the show, The Game. Okay, yes,
yes,
yes, with
yes.
Melanie, and then he had a baby coming. Oh my gosh, that whole drama. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but before that, he had cheated on her with this like R&B singer.
Yep.
And so anyway, so this girl, fast forward years later, she's on the show, The Real Housewives of Atlanta. And it's like a reality show. So she actually shows like her family drama and all that. So she has a son that she had previously from, a relationship that she was in. And now she's married and then like, has kids with him. Well, her husband has basically filled in the shoes of the father, because the father, like, he ended up going to jail, so he's never been a part of his son's life. So now that he's out of jail, he's trying to be a part of his son's life, and the son's like, I don't want a relationship with him. Like, I already have my dad. And I'm sure you can relate to this because it's just a really hard situation. You don't want to force your child. You don't want to make them feel like that toxic statement, well, that's still your father and that's
Right.
still your, you shouldn't, at least for me, I feel like you shouldn't force a child. My mom always says there's two people that tell the truth, drunks and children. So if your kid's saying, hey, I don't want to be around this person, it's for a reason.
Or I don't feel comfortable around this person, even if it's your father. Yeah.
Yep. So, I've always taken that to mind, and, I've done my part to allow her to have a relationship with her father and his family, but they never have really put in the work to, have a relationship with her. Mind you, her grandma on her dad's side, her birthday is the day after my daughter's. So never got a birthday card, never got a happy birthday call, nothing. So it's not like they're unaware of her birthday. It's
They
not like
just didn't care to put in the work
exactly.
and to actually try to, like, man, there's a piece of our blood out there. Let's try to
Right.
find this and build this. If they were to even know the type of person you are, like if they were to have really understood how you are,
Right.
they would have easily made that call and like, but they didn't even care to get to know you. you
Yeah.
know, and to like, or who is this woman that married my son, that had a child? Like my son obviously loved her enough to marry her.
Right.
Yeah, he was a piece of shit, you know, but at least we know that he took that step because he loved her. So obviously
Right.
there's something good in this woman. Oh, she's open to letting me see her daughter. Like you didn't even try. You didn't care. Like I can't even understand that because of how our parents are and how involved our parents are as grandparents, that it's
Mhm.
like I understand if you did even hold them, because at the end of the day, like you had from the moment she was born to want this. And how old is she now?
She's 15 going on 16. So
Girl, and you're
yeah.
just now wanting to have, like, come on. And listen, with this, I say this lightly because I know that I also feel strongly about it's never too late, but sometimes that's not up to us. Like if your daughter doesn't feel comfortable, you can't blame her. Like she has every right to feel what she's feeling because she feels I've got enough. Like I don't need to start over with someone else, you know? And then
Right.
think about it,
Exactly.
as you're older, it's hard to get attached to an old lady you have never met. Like, I'm
Exactly.
sorry. That's
Yeah.
it is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
So what is
Yeah.
she you
So
you told her like, "Hey, your grandma," or was it him that told her?
So she actually reached out, her grandma reached out to her on Facebook. My daughter never changed it,
Wow.
like she never, checks her Facebook. So she randomly went on there because she said she was trying to find like one of her old teachers, and she added her, she added her grandma, and she reached out to her. So I was in the living room just hanging out, and she walks in there, and when kids like they have something to say to their mom and you can hear it in their voice, it's like kind of shaky, and like what's going on. So she walks in there and she's like, "Mom," and I was like, "What?" And then she
Yeah.
breaks it down to me, and I could tell she was like getting emotional. So she
Wow.
started crying, and of course like that broke my heart, and I hugged her, and I just had to have that talk with her, to
Wow.
let her know that she doesn't have to have a relationship if she doesn't want to. But I did ask her to at least be open to it. I don't ever want to stop her from having a relationship with
Right.
them if she wants to. Like, I don't want her to think, well, I'm going to hurt my mom if I try to have a relationship
Right.
with them. So I'm like, I'm okay with it. And she basically said that she just doesn't feel, the need or the want to. And I told her that's fine too. But I think like as a parent, you want your child to make decisions that are good for them as well. For the most part, I've allowed her to be as independent as possible, and I've let her make, some big decisions for herself. But at this point, this is something that I'm scared might affect her later down the line with other relationships.
Yep.
So I told her, let's just be open to the idea. And if once you do have a conversation with her, and if you still feel uncomfortable, then that's fine. But don't let hate build in your heart for somebody that it's just not worth it. It's not worth carrying any hate for somebody.
Yep.
And I told her our hearts aren't meant to be hurt, or to feel like we need to carry that with us, and so we're not made that way. God
Yep.
made us to be loving people. So you can be kind, you can be courteous, but you can also have your boundaries and know that, hey, this isn't healthy for me. I have that with my sister. My blood sister and I, we don't have a relationship anymore. We used to be really, really tight, and now we don't even speak. It's been like over 2 years now. And of course, my mom will be like, "Oh, pues es tu hermana," like it's still your sister. But I just feel like we don't need a relationship right now, not until like we can have like some professional, counseling or whatever it takes, for us to have a healthy relationship. But
Yep.
I just got to the point in my life where I don't care if you're my parent. If it's unhealthy for me, then I don't need to have a relationship with you. And my daughter, I feel like she sees that, and she's like, well, that, like I'm going to follow my mom's footsteps. Like if it's not healthy for me, then I'm just not going to do it.
I
So
think I think too, with that situation, you have tried to mend things. You've done that where you mend things without the assistance of therapy or, getting help, and it didn't work, like
mm,
over and over again. So you're
yeah,
like, at this point, I'm wasting more energy trying to have this sisterly relationship with you when you're not putting in the work. So
right.
you're speaking through experience, like you've done that before.
Mhm.
Whereas, with your daughter, this is like new to her. And it's like, I think, listen, I'm no expert, but I think the way you broke it down to her, which is like, you know, don't be so quick to cut people off, but
Right.
also you're very valid to feel how you feel. I think that would be the best way, in my opinion, how I would also treat it too. Because, I think with you, you've always been good at, even with her father, even though all the things that he's done to you, even though um there's a possibility that he's just not going to be a good father around her, you have still given her the choice to, like, go ahead and do this if you want to, go ahead and hang out with him if you want to, go ahead, and you've allowed her to do that because you don't want her to later feel like, well, why did you keep me away from him, or why didn't you try when he tried? And it's like,
Mhm.
and people don't even know the half of it. Like, you have literally given more for him to be a father than he has to be a father. Like,
Exactly.
you have literally made it, like, physically and emotionally available for him to be the best father, and
Yeah.
he just didn't
Didn't. Yeah.
didn't take that opportunity. So going into it with the grandma, which you don't even have a relationship with, you're
Mhm.
still like open with, like, hey, this is your grandmother, still your blood. I
Mhm.
know it feels weird, but just think about it, because even though your feelings are valid,
Mhm.
just think about if you never get that chance because she passes away or whatever. You're allowing her to, like, open up to those. I think that's the best way you did it. I think the way you
Yeah.
did it is the best way to give her the option to make that choice with no rush. Like, don't feel
Yeah.
pressured to do it, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I'm dealing with a teenager, and you know what it's like when you're a teenager, everything's so like dramatic and
Yep.
it's so, but I want her to be able to make a sound decision. That's why I knew
Yep.
she was emotional. So that's why I was like, let me just talk to her. Let me get her, through this. And maybe once she feels better, she can make that decision on her own. Listen, she's about to be going off to college because she's graduating high school early. So she'll be
Crazy.
going off to college, a year earlier than she's supposed to. She
Yeah.
has her whole life ahead of her. She's going to be making big decisions in her life, and I just want her to remember like who you are as a person. Don't forget that. Like, don't let this world taint you. And I think that that's something that I've learned even myself. No matter what has happened, and you've been the same way. Like, no matter what has happened to us, no matter what experiences we've had, we've always remained good people. And I think that it's really important that our kids remember that too.
Yeah.
No matter how people hurt you, no matter what people do to you, just remember that you're a good person.
Yeah.
And but you also have to set your boundaries.
Yep.
And even if it's your dad or your mother or your family or friends, old relationships, whatever it is, you can still be cool and cordial with somebody, but be like, nah, like
Yep.
we're good right here.
Yep.
So
And
yeah.
that's, we say that to say that if you are in a situation where you are looking at it like, man, I guess I really haven't been the most vulnerable, or haven't been the most like giving person to my baby daddy, because you feel all these feelings that he put you through, it's
Mhm.
okay to still, rethink that. And sometimes it may be too late for the other person, but at least even though it took so long for you to be, because let me tell you, it's easy to be bitter after you go through some bullshit, whether it's
Mhm.
betrayal, domestic violence, whatever. It's
Mhm.
very easy to be like, fuck no, I don't want my child around that. And
Yep.
sometimes it's because of how we feel we were treated, even
Yep.
though it has nothing to do with how they've treated our child, because they haven't had that relationship. It's
Right.
easy for us to be like, man, fuck you, I don't want my daughter around that, I don't want my son around that. It's so easy. So if you are or have gone through that, just think about it for a second. Try to take your emotions out of that for a second and think, if this was your father or mother, would you eventually, as you got older, now that we're older, would you feel resentment knowing that the father or the mother tried to be in your life, but
Mhm.
the other parent didn't allow that
Mhm.
because they felt some type of way about it? Just think
Right.
about it that way. And I just feel like it's not too late to fix that.
Mhm.
However, it can be too late for the other person, but at least you did your part in saying, hey, you know what? I know that we've had our differences and I have felt some type of way about you, but if you're willing and wanting to be part of our child's life, I'm willing to take the steps necessary to make that happen, because what I don't want to do is grow up and think, I mean, for my child to grow up and think that I was the one that just didn't want anything to do with you, but it was
Yep.
really the fear that you instilled in me. You made
Mhm.
me feel this way, but I in turn, like, to protect my child, was not giving you the opportunity to even grow from your mistakes. So
Right.
if you're
Yep.
willing, let's do that. And I can say that because I still don't have a relationship with my daughter's father, right? And you and I have talked about how like we've been so lenient with like not telling them, letting them make their own choices and how they feel about their fathers, right? Now
Mhm.
that we both are dealing with teens and they're starting to recognize that, you know, they're not the best parents,
Mhm.
they are recognizing that for themselves, you know.
Right.
And with mine, same thing. Is like she's now opening up about certain things. Like before, I couldn't get her to like not go to her father's house. I'd be like, why do you want to go over there? Like I just wanted to keep her for myself, you know. And
Mhm.
so I would be like, you don't have to go every weekend, because I had like that fear of letting my child go, and so I wanted her always to be with me, but I never actually physically stopped her.
Yeah.
So now that she's older, girl, she's giving me the whole like, uh do I have to go? And I'm like, nope,
Mhm.
never have forced you. But she's starting to see that her father is not really a father. He's just
Right.
a grown adult who happens to be her dad. And so
Yep.
now that she's at age where she's starting to recognize that, she'll tell me certain things and she'll defend me because apparently he talks about me. She'll defend me. And I'm like, I never wanted to be the one to always bash him, but now that you see it, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? That's for you to decide. And if you
Mhm.
don't want to go over there, like you don't have to go over there. Like that's his loss for not building a bond with you. So
Right.
even though the dad was present, by the way,
Mhm.
never supported her. I've never asked him for any money. He's given me more problems than he has helped at all. So now that she's recognizing that,
Mhm.
she gets to make the decision whether or not she wants to move forward with still
Right.
being in his life. And you know what it is? She actually feels bad for him. Ain't that sad? Like she
Mhm.
feels bad saying no because she feels like he's gonna give her that, like, you don't want to come to my house anymore. But it's not like he's not abusing her or anything like that. I'm just saying she just doesn't feel that bond, that comfort that she feels with like our kids feel with us.
Right.
So
Right.
just know that going in that it's up to you. Ultimately, like we can make bad decisions by being bitter at some point, which it's understandable, but you can also correct that. You know, it's not, I
Yep.
feel like it's not too late. I feel like when parents get judged by that, it's fucked up because you don't know what they've been through mentally. And if they don't, they were bitter and not wanting to let the child go, a lot of the times it's because they're mentally not ready to
Right.
detach from their child because of the hurt and pain that they've been through with that partner. So
Mhm.
I think it's important. I
Yeah.
think honestly, you handled it so well with the
Thank
grandma. Do you
you.
feel like reaching out to the grandma to being like, hey, I know you reached out to my daughter. What is it that you're trying to achieve from that? Like, do you feel like that's a step that you would want to take?
Um, See, I'm still learning how to like process my own feelings about that whole situation because I never really had a relationship with her either. She never really liked me. And, it's just one of those awkward, like, how do I approach this type of thing? So I'm still not sure. And mind you, even if you're not a parent, and I hope like if you guys are listening to this, this helps you. God forbid you're ever in a situation where you're
I know.
co-parenting. Because
Yes.
I will say this, if you can avoid having kids with somebody that you don't really know or that you're not even married to, listen, I was married and I still, it still didn't work out, but it's just it's so challenging to have
It is.
to co-parent with somebody that you don't really know, and then you start seeing their parenting style. If you decide to have a child, however means you want to have a child, just make sure that you and the other parent are on the same page, or at least
Yeah,
try to work together, because it is really hard
it
raising
is.
a child with another person, especially if you're not in the same household. Even if you're in the same household,
Man,
co-parenting is a lot of work.
say
So
that.
just please be cautious before you jump into having a child with somebody. But with that said, like, I feel like I'm still learning and growing. I'm still trying to learn how to approach situations without being too emotional.
Same.
Trying to do what's best for my daughter. So I think, I think I might reach out to her and just say, hey, I just want to see if there's something that we can talk about before, you speak to Amia, because maybe like she'll feel more comfortable if she sees that I have a relationship with you. Our kids are very attached to us. Our kids, we're not regular moms, we're cool moms. Okay. So like our
Say
kids,
it. Say
yeah,
it.
like our kids really love us, and we have
Yeah.
such a special bond with our kids.
Yeah.
So of course, like if they see mommy crying about something, they're going to feel a certain way about that person that hurt their mother. And even us as grown adults, listen, if somebody messes with my mama,
Yep.
it's over. It's a
Same.
wrap.
Same.
So, my kid is the same way. I know your kids are the same way. So I feel like if I can maybe bridge that gap, maybe, that'll be healthy for my daughter. Ultimately, I just want my daughter to know that she's loved and cared for. And the more the merrier. I always said, whoever he chooses to be with, if they want to be a part of my daughter's life, I've always been okay with it. But I just want it to be healthy for her. I don't ever want her to feel like uncomfortable around, her stepmom, or, if she feels left out, because he has several kids with different women. So that gets tough. Like, I can't be out here wrangling all his baby mamas and all his kids. That's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of that's a mass message type of thing, And
that normally, the reason why it works with people like Fetty Wap, celebrity, this is the first person that came to mind, by the way. But with people, the reason why it works for people like that is because they got the money to just oh, here, come fly here, fly there. Like, that's different. Like, in the celebrity world, they can get away with shit like that, even though it's still very foul, because you got all these kids that don't get to have their father every day. It sucks.
Yep.
So when people say like, well, Fetty takes care of his kids, or these celebrities take care of the kids, yeah, but money is not a way to build a bond all the time. You know what I'm saying? And so you can't get mad when your child doesn't want to be with you all the time because they don't have that bond with you. And honestly, if I can just say one thing about this situation with you and the grandmother, in my opinion, she already started off wrong by reaching out to her instead of reaching out to you first. Because if she genuinely cared to make this relationship work, she knows it would have been to go to the mother first to say, hey, I know we have our differences. I know that in the past we didn't get along, but I would really want to have a relationship with my grandchild. I know it's old. She's older now. And it's like, maybe I lost a lot of time. I feel like if she would have done it that way, you would have easily been like, you're right. And we can set our differences aside, but let's talk. And I think that would have been easier for you to kind of come to Amia and kind of prepare her for her, instead of her having to see it and be like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like, so she started off wrong. And I don't want to bring that like negativity, like toward your situation. But I feel like it was a little disrespectful for her not to go to you first.
Right.
And then you figure out how you can bring it to your daughter, because now it went directly to her and it got her emotional right away. That tells you a lot. And, it just sucks. But again, the fact that you're still willing to shows the type of person that you are, that you are forgiving. And not everyone is like that. But if it's worked for you this far, who is anybody to tell you that you got to change that? All I'm saying is she did that shit wrong. She should have reached out to you first.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure. I feel like I was such a young mom, and I'm still young. I'm still hip. So I'm still trying.
So
I'm just trying to make the best of a really tough situation. Unfortunately, us adults, we make some really stupid decisions sometimes. And unfortunately, our kids end up paying the consequences that, off of our decisions that we've made. It's not their fault, and we do our best as parents to provide them with everything that they need. But I'm a big believer in, I don't care how old your child is, you always have to remember you are raising a functioning adult. And, you have to remember that with showing them how to, I don't know, pay bills, showing them how to, just everyday stuff. I don't know, like how to grocery shop, how to do, adult things. But I think the thing that maybe you can agree or disagree, but my parents didn't really teach me how to deal with this, because like my parents have always been together. So I didn't have an example of what, co-parenting looked like when it came to, because your parents are still together too. So it's a little tough trying to figure out this whole co-parenting thing, and how do I, allow her to have a relationship with her dad's family when she
what's right and what's wrong, like
so because she doesn't have a relationship with her dad. So I can just imagine what that's like. I mean, even with my parents, like I can't say that I have a strong relationship with like my dad's side of the family. Maybe there's some cousins that I'm like close with, but I don't really have like a relationship with, a lot of my extended family. I would love to, I would absolutely love that. But I just wasn't like really given that opportunity, because we've always kind of lived away from everybody. But, now it's like, there's no excuse. There's technology. There's ways that, you can still like have a relationship with people, even if it's via, FaceTime or whatever.
Exactly. Or
So
WhatsApp, you know,
yeah, WhatsApp, exactly.
all my Mexican family in Mexico, they WhatsApping, you know what I'm saying? So if there's a will, there's a way. Plain and
Exactly.
simple. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So yeah, I'm just learning and growing and trying to, pass on whatever I learned to my daughter. I have these so you remember Liz Hernandez
Yeah.
from Big Boys Neighborhood? Okay. So she went on her spiritual journey and she does these amazing, she has like this amazing series called Wordiful. And Wordiful
I
is
love it.
basically like the power of words. So I got her cards. They're like basically every card has like a different word and a different meaning. And I had pulled forgiveness. And so I gave it to my daughter. I was like, here, this might, help you out. And basically it says like forgiveness is really for you too. It's one thing to like forgive somebody. I'm sure it helps somebody when they say I'm sorry and you're like, I forgive you. That's a very like mutual like respect you have for another person. But you have to remember, like when you forgive somebody, you make room for other things. So you're like letting go of whatever hate or bitterness that you have in your heart, and you're able to open up for more love or you just more beautiful experiences. So that's something that I want to teach my daughter, and hopefully somebody who hears this it'll resonate.
And it's
with
not
them.
easy.
Heck no.
Like,
no.
You know how people always say like forgiveness is for you, not for them.
Mm-hmm.
I never understood that. Honestly, if I'm being honest, it took me a while to be like, the fuck does that mean? Because I still don't feel comfortable with you. And I still have that shit that you did in the back of my mind,
Mm-hmm.
So it is a process. It's hard. I've done it several times. And each time that I have, like, it took so much to detach myself from that thing that they did or that hurt that they caused. That is so hard, but it is doable. And once you get to the other side where you're like, you finally just let that go, it just becomes so much easier, because then you could build with that person, or you don't have to. You know that there's no negative energy. So when you come across them, you don't feel a certain way. You're just like, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. All right, bye. So it's like it does feel good when you forgive someone genuinely, but it's not easy. So I'm glad that you're teaching her that now, because I feel like that's something that wasn't taught to us. That's something that was like, it was said, or we heard about it, but we never were taught like what it actually means to let go of those things, and not have them holding on, like hovering over you.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we, teach our kids how to handle our emotions and how to process, our feelings, because a lot of times we just hover those feelings, we hold on to them, or we pretend like shit doesn't bother us, and that's not good either. I'm really good with that. I'm really good with acting like I'm unbothered, but ultimately, like I'll end up having like a mental breakdown, an emotional breakdown, because I hold on to stuff so much. We're always like looked at these like a strong woman, right? And I know you know this because this happens to both of us. People will be like, "You're so strong," and wow, you handle things really well. And behind the scenes, they don't know
we're
that
falling apart.
Exactly. So, and I, while it's really good to be able to process emotions and to feel those emotions, to cry, it's also really good to be able to just be a G about it too, and just be like, all right, like I cried that shit out, let me go and handle this with a sound mind, because a lot of times our emotions cloud our thought process and we're not logical about certain situations. And I think it's really important, whether we're dealing with an ex, or whether we're dealing with a coworker or a boss, it's really important that we allow ourselves to feel, to process our emotions, but then come back with a logical mind and deal with it. That's why I think I'm really learning the difference between like responding and reacting, because boy, am I quick to react.
Oh my gosh, yes. And people say like, oh, just take a walk. Fuck no, you don't want to walk. You want to sock somebody. That's the first thing you want to do. So it's funny, because when you say that, it's like, we're speaking about how there's certain ways you can do parenting and what works for us and what doesn't. But I think we're all trying to achieve the same thing, and that's to be the best parent that we can. So when you do fall short, don't put that pressure on yourself. Like if you do fall short when it comes to parenting, or you realize that maybe that wasn't the way to go, or maybe I should have done it this way, don't feel bad, because there's no perfect parent out there. As much as we want to be the best, there's no perfect parent. So when you make those mistakes, You learn from them. And
Yeah.
you shouldn't feel like I'm a shitty, because how many times, I can't tell you how many times I felt like, oh, I'm such a shitty parent. Like, why did I do that? Or why did I react that way? It's like we all feel that way.
Yeah.
So don't let someone else tell you that you fucked up. You
Right.
tell yourself when you fucked up and you feel that in your heart, tell
Mhm.
yourself, all right, what I'm not going to do is that, because like I need to fix that, but
Yeah.
it's okay to make those mistakes, because I feel like if you're able to acknowledge that you made those mistakes, then you're able to move forward from it so you can work on yourself in the progress. I feel
Right.
like, because guess what? Your kids are going to forget about that,
Yeah.
eventually the kids will move on, and then once you've shown them that that's not the way to do it, they
Right.
will recognize that, and that whatever mistake you thought you made will be out the door, because you've already showed them the right way to do it, because you've already worked on that yourself. So as a parent, if you've made those mistakes, like we've talked about, if you have taken it out on the father and kind of stop that relationship, it's still not too late. So don't feel bad, don't feel like, man, I should have done that. Don't,
Mhm.
like, you can still do it. You can
Yeah.
still do it. We'll just
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly, we'll talk more about your situation, because I'm always going to be here for you. And the one thing about Angie and I is we've literally reached out to each other where I'm like, I just got done crying, girl. Woo, but that felt good. And then there'll be other, like, literally 2 days later, I was like, oh, how you doing or whatever. Andrew's like, girl, I just had a session. I'm like, how you feel? I feel good. It's like, you need to find yourself a friend that you can go to for that. Because
Mhm.
sometimes, like, Angie and I would be talking about some deep shit, and then I'm like, I feel like crying. And then she'll be like, well, do it. I was like, you're right. I'm crying now. It just, you need those friends that genuinely care. And there's not a lot of friends that you have like that. You can't, if you think about the group of friends that you have around you, you have a different relationship with every single one of them. So
Yeah.
you got to know who's the one that you feel most comfortable with, could you be more vulnerable with, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, those things you have to think about when it comes to like your friends. And then when you find that person that you can connect with, do that shit. And it feels good to be able to go to someone. And like, I have sisters, like my real sisters I can go to for that, right? But
Yeah.
I also know that they all have their lives, and sometimes I don't want to put that on them.
Right.
And I feel like when I talk to you, even you, as with certain things, and I think about how my sisters don't even know I'm dealing with certain things, I
Mhm.
feel a little bad. Like, I feel like, man, my sisters don't even know I'm going to my friend instead. But
Mhm.
sometimes it's okay, because
Right.
they didn't need that weight on them. And you were willing to be like, talk to me, tell
Yeah.
me, and
Yeah.
when you have a friend who's telling you that, like, it
Mhm.
feels good to be like, all right, well, you're giving me the open door to give you that. So girl, here's what the
Right.
fuck just happened. And it feels good to have that. So just recognize what friends you can go with, because there's some that will hear you and they'll be like, so girl,
And
what you trying to eat? You know what I'm saying? Like,
or even worse, they go and they tell your business to other people.
that
So
part.
let me just say this, because I've been guilty of it, where I'll accidentally like share something that someone like shared with me. I don't
Right.
think you have to say specifically, don't tell anybody this, but it should be one of those like, hey girl, this is something I really want to share with you, but if you can just please keep it between
Right.
us.
Yep.
Just because I feel like, some things, yeah, don't need to be shared. I really have learned over time that if somebody shares something with me, one, I don't know if you ever noticed this. I don't really like to ask a lot of questions. I let people open up to me. If they want to share something with me, I allow it, because obviously, like, I want to be there for them, but I
Right.
also want them to feel comfortable enough and not feel like interrogated.
When you're
But
ready to talk, you tell me, but I'm
exactly.
going to be here. You don't have to tell
Mhm.
me. I know you're
Right.
going through some shit. And that's actually the same situation that happened with us, because you
Mhm.
didn't find out what I was dealing with, because you gave me the time. You were like, I know you're going through something. When you're ready to talk, talk. And I was
Mhm.
like, I appreciate that. And at the moment, I wasn't ready to talk. I really wasn't. And
Right.
so taking
Yeah.
that break and like dealing with it, going through the emotions, and then like coming out of it slowly was when I
Right.
was like, all right, here's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That was the incident that took place with 2020. A lot of people were going through a lot of things, and one of the things I was open about was having kids. I wanted to have kids. We had been trying, we were fucking, we definitely were. We're trying to shoot the shit, and it worked. We ended up getting pregnant. We did get pregnant. The beginning, it was actually towards the end. So when we were talking about I wanted to have a baby, we were already trying, but didn't realize I was pregnant. So if you go back to the episodes where we were talking about that, I was pregnant and didn't know it in the beginning until afterwards. And then I wanted to kind of hold that to myself to see if, because obviously I wanted to play it safe. I'm like, I haven't had a child in 10 years. Like, I want to see how it's going to go. And unfortunately, I had a miscarriage. I had a miscarriage 2 months after that. Almost 2 months. Yeah. So it was very, very quick. So I didn't even get a chance to even tell people that I was pregnant. So when that happened, I had to have a procedure because it was my first doctor's appointment that I realized it was a failed pregnancy. So I had to have my procedure and I went through that. And of course, it was devastating because anyone who's lost a child and who has really been trying to have a child, it's devastating. And I had never experienced that. I had never gone through that because, I have 2 healthy kids and I've just thought I'm Mexican, I'm fertile as fuck, which I have been. But I just didn't think I would go through something like that. So I kind of like, because I'm still working through the process, obviously I never stopped working. I've been working from home. I let that go. And I feel like I handled it well. So when we try to get pregnant again and they told us like, okay, this is the amount of time you have to give yourself a break, because this is a procedure that you had. So you have to like be really careful. If you've never had a DNC before, basically they have to take the baby out or the fetus out. And so I had never been through that. I was so scared and I went through the procedure and then the bleeding, like it's a lot that women go through. When people say I had a miscarriage and you're like, oh man, I hear this all the time. Cause let me tell you, the OBGYNs, a lot of them, they feel like they see it so often that it's like dismissible. Like the way they talk to you is like, it's dismissible, which I get it in a sense because they see it so often, but I feel like they haven't had enough training to be like, this is not new to you, but this is new to me. So please elaborate. Tell me what I'm going to experience. Tell me what I'm going to feel. Like, do I need to go get therapy? Because there's women that handle things differently. And to me, I feel like it's very dismissive. When I found out I was having a miscarriage, you're like, all right, so let's schedule your blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I just came here to see how far along I am. And you're telling me that this is not happening. And you're telling me you want to schedule to take my baby out. Like, wait, what? What's happening? So there's a lot that gets thrown on you. And as women, we still got to go to work. We still got to be like, for instance, me in entertainment, like I still got to be happy. I got to, make people happy. That's my job. My job is to make people feel good. And so it was a lot to take in. And I just didn't like the way it was very dismissed. But, eventually I did the procedure. I was able to manage to like get over that. And by over that, I mean like, to deal with it, to be able to handle it. So once I started, my hormones, by the way, were like this. So once my hormones started to come down back to normal, I was like, all right, so let's start doing this again. Let's record. Let's get back to work. I never stopped working. Because I was working from home, I had no choice. So even though I was bleeding, I had headaches, I felt like shit, I still had to work. Right. So this is what the perfect example when I say you never know what someone is going through. So when someone addresses you in the wrong way, it's good to think about it before reacting, like Angie had said, because you really don't know. So fast forward to a couple months after that, I get pregnant again. And I'm like, oh my, I'm excited, but scared at the same time, because now I've dealing with the miscarriage, which I didn't know can be so fearful to get pregnant again. I really didn't. But when I got pregnant again, I was so scared for that first appointment. I was dreading it. I would tell Angie, I'm like, I want to get excited, but I can't. Like, I'm scared that I'm going to go to my first appointment and they're going to tell me again that something's wrong. So I held off as long as I could to get my first appointment. So I finally got my first appointment. Everything seemed fine. I was like so emotional, and still, even though they told me like my baby's alive, my baby's good, growing at the right pace it's supposed to, I still was so scared. Like I'm like, I know that I've seen it moving around. I've seen it jumping around. I'm still scared. So I saw the video. I even have, footage of my baby like moving around. Everything seemed fine. And then my second appointment, same thing. They were able to see I was able to hear the heartbeat. I was able to see my baby moving around. And then when it came down to the appointment it was a 3-month appointment. So it was my appointment to see, where they test to see if your baby has Down syndrome. If they do a ultrasound to see if the baby's growing fine, they measure the head and measure all that. For that appointment, at that time, I was already a little more comfortable because I had already seen that my baby was fine at the
Mhm.
11-week mark. You
Yeah.
know? So fast forward to when that date came around, I
Mhm.
was still like that fear. I'm like, "Ah, what if something's wrong? What if something's wrong?" Like I still feel sick. I still feel nauseous. I'm still going through the hormonal changes. But
Right.
when that appointment came, and by the way, because of COVID, I had to be there by myself. So like my
Mhm.
man's outside, I'm inside dealing with this. So they when they go and check, and I noticed in the nurse's face something was wrong. I didn't know what it was, but I noticed something was wrong.
Mhm.
And I wanted to like say something, and I was like, I want to know? Like, I don't want to know. But then I
Mhm.
asked, and she couldn't even give me an answer because she's like, you have to wait for the doctor to come in. But she was asking certain questions like,
Right.
are you hurting? Have you bled? Have you? And I'm like, why is she asking me all these questions when I'm cleared? Like a couple
Right.
weeks ago, my baby was fine, like floating around, moving around, and everything. Like, what? Why is she asking me? So the fucking fear started to
Mhm.
kick in. Like, oh, what is she saying this for? Doctor comes in and asks me the same questions. Have you been bleeding? Have you had cramps? I'm like, no, no, no. Why? Why do you guys keep asking me these questions? Like, just
Mhm.
tell me what's going on. And she's like, well, we're looking and we just see like we don't seem to see any movement, any growth or whatever. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, that
Mhm.
can't be because I was here 2 weeks ago and my baby was fine. Like something's not right. You guys, can you check again? And she's like, we did, and there's no cardiac action. There's no activity there.
Mhm.
And I was like, and she told the nurse something in her ear, like whispered it. And I was like, excuse me. I was like, what did you just say? And she's like, I don't want to tell you because I don't want to scare you. She's like, but with just the shape of the neck and the head, she's like, it just seems like there's a little bit of inflammation there. And I was
Mhm.
like, what do you mean? Like, I'm just confused. And I'm like, here's this negative news. So I was like, so are you saying that my baby's not alive? And she was
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's not, there's no activity there. So yes, that's why we asked you if you're bleeding and blah, blah, blah. I was like, are you sure? Like I went into frantic, like this can't be right. I'm like crying like so much. I'm by myself. I'm like, this, you're not doing this right. Like, I'm start thinking of everything. I'm like, I have like my uterus is flipped. So maybe you guys just didn't get the right picture. Maybe you guys just didn't get it right. Can you go in through my vagina? Can you do what is it, transvaginal or something like that, where they go
Mhm.
in through the ultrasound with your vagina
Right.
instead of
Mhm.
going above your stomach? Because I
Mhm.
was already showing at this point too. And so I'm like, you guys just do it again. And they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to give me because they're so used to, oh, it's a miscarriage. It happens 3 times out of blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But can you do it? Because I don't feel comfortable. She didn't want to do it. So it took like literally me crying, begging them. I said, please, like, can you? And so when they were going to check me out to go give me another appointment for the DNC, because they
Mhm.
wanted me to take it out,
Mhm.
I'm like a mess because at this point I'm thinking I'm good, right? So I'm like, since you don't want to do it, I was like, can I schedule? I don't want to schedule an appointment for that. Can I schedule an ultrasound with my doctor to
Mhm.
see if they can do an ultrasound? She's like, for what? I was like, because I just feel like you're not telling me something. I'm like, maybe you didn't check right and you didn't want to do the transvaginal. So I would rather do that.
Mhm.
She's like, do you really want that? I was like, yes, that's why I asked you. And she's like, okay, we'll do it. So literally because I was like fucking begging, it took for her to take me back there and give me that reassurance that as a mother, you want to know for sure if this is something that's happening. So I
Right.
finally get that. And that's when I find out that yes, my baby was not alive.
Mhm.
It was devastating. I was like going through it. I leave. I didn't want to schedule anything. I was just like, oh my God. By this point, I had already told my kids I was
Mhm.
pregnant again. So they were like, like how, how could this happen? They were excited for the possibilities of them having another sibling, especially
Right.
because they knew that I was waiting for a certain mark to find out if I was safe. I had
Mhm.
got to the safe mark. And so when I had to break it down to them, I was just like a lot. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go home. My parents are waiting to see like what's happening. And
Mhm.
it's just too much. You don't even want to talk about it. You're so drained that you don't
Mhm.
even want to talk to people about it. It was even hard to talk to my partner about it, like to tell him like, here we go again. Like we're doing this again. And then he's like, how could it be? Like, we saw the baby moving, like everything was fine. Like we did it again. So
Mhm.
we had to go through that process. I didn't schedule my appointment. I was like, I just can't. I didn't have any energy. I couldn't even hide it. So my kids knew the moment I walked in the house that something was wrong. And it was a mess. So that was an emotional like moment, right? And then I just kept praying. I would pray like, please tell me there's like a miracle. Maybe something was wrong. I've heard of stories where they got it wrong before. I've heard of situations where they, pronounced the baby's dead and the baby ended up growing and being fine. And so I finally scheduled my appointment a week after that. And then I was like, all right, well, if something happens, it happens by then. So I had my appointment scheduled to go and do another DNC because at this point I was just waiting. I was hoping that they were wrong. I want to say a couple days before my appointment, I started bleeding. And so they had kind of told me like, this is what could happen. You could bleed out, it's going to be fine though. You just bleed out, you flush the toilet, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? Like my baby is 3-something months right now. Do you want me to just flush it down the toilet? Like what? So it was a lot. So the pain started coming in. And again, I've never had a miscarriage where it just came on its own. So I'm like bleeding. I had to be in bed rest and I'm like nonstop bleeding. The pains were getting so much worse. It was just a lot to deal with. Eventually, I ended up going to the hospital because I was literally about to faint from the pain. It turns out I had just got, I was going through labor. So it wasn't just a miscarriage. So I had the labor pains. It took a minute. They took me right into the hospital. I got into a bed. I told them what was happening and they knew it was a miscarriage, but it wasn't just like I had to go through the labor part. So I was literally in labor for fucking hours of pain. They were giving me medicine, pill medicine that just wasn't enough to cover the pain. So eventually they gave me morphine. After hours, they gave me morphine. And as soon as they gave me the morphine, I felt something was happening down there. So I go in the bathroom and sure enough, my baby came out. So my baby came out in the hospital bathroom and I had to literally, and the bleeding doesn't stop. If you've ever had a miscarriage or, given birth, the bleeding doesn't stop. So it was like nonstop. I'm like so high off the morphine, but I'm looking at my baby. I can see the head. I can see the body. You can see the baby fully developed. So I'm like, and I'm high. So I can't even tell you how I felt. Like I'm like, I just knew that I was not about to flush my baby down the toilet, And so I had to call for help. They came in, and the nurse knew how to handle it right away. And she was like, don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of this. And they did. So they must've dealt with that before. The process after that, still having to bleed. I bled out for fucking maybe an hour and a half, just nonstop. So they had to keep me in the hospital so I wasn't hemorrhaging. Is that what it is? So they kept me in the hospital forever. And then they finally told me that if I wanted to know the sex of the baby, like all these details, nobody tells you about these details that you need to fill out. Do you want to know what you were having? Do you want to know what happened? Do you want to have, a ceremony for your baby? Like what? It's a lot to take in. So I'm dealing with all of this by myself because at this point they didn't let anybody come in with you, COVID, right? So it was a lot. Fast forward to I finally go home. I'm no longer pregnant, but still bleeding, still feel the symptoms, still have the hormones, still feel everything that a pregnant woman does, only you're not pregnant. So that it was a lot, dude. And going through all of that and still working, so I took maybe like a week or two off from work and had to come right back like nothing happened. So the world around me, the world around us had no idea what was going on, right? So it's for women when they go through miscarriage, you really don't know how much they deal with. And I'll be honest with you, because I had never dealt with a miscarriage, I didn't really know how big of a deal it was. I figured like, oh, well, it comes in and comes out. Like that's what I've always been told, but no one really talks about like how damaging it is. And I noticed there's so many people out there that feel the same way. And there are groups that you can talk to, people you can talk to. I had went on this app and I talked about what the doctors had told me. And they were like, there were so many women that's like, just feel better because you never know things can change. They may be wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then there's so many women. It's like, I want you to mentally prepare yourself in case it's not. And it's like, there are so many good women that genuinely care. These are strangers that didn't know who I was giving me all this information. And I'm just like, I don't know where to go. Like, do I mentally prepare for not having, or do I not fear myself more than I already am? Like it was a lot. So basically all of 2020, I was pregnant. there was like 2 months that I wasn't out of
Mhm.
2020 that I wasn't pregnant.
Mhm.
So I gained so much weight. My hormones were like, I was all over the place. My hormone levels didn't come down fully until literally December, where
Mhm.
I was, and I talked to you about it, where I was like, I kind of am starting to feel like myself again. But I never
Mhm.
went to therapy. I never went through like, and I felt like I was overcoming it fine. It took a couple months for me to like, and then this March I would have given birth to my baby. And
Mhm.
that's when it was like, that was a lot to take in. And then I
Yeah.
realized maybe I do need therapy. Like maybe I do need someone to talk to, because now, as much as I want a baby, I'm so scared to get pregnant again. So
Mhm.
I'm actually doing the opposite of what I was doing last year, which was try to time out to see when I can get pregnant. Now I'm doing the opposite. I'm literally looking up when I cannot get pregnant. And it's
Mm.
something that most people don't talk about. Like, I want a baby so bad, and I just don't want to have to go through that again.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when it's going to happen, I don't know. And you've experienced this, like,
Yeah.
throughout this whole thing, you were probably the only one I was closest to talk to you about this, because I know you had just recently gone through something like that. So
Mhm.
literally, like, my best friend from high school that I always go to, I wasn't able to talk to her about that. Like,
Mhm.
we kind of had that bond because you had been through it.
Yeah, I think you handled it really well, though. I mean, obviously, therapy is going to be very helpful for you. I don't try to push therapy on people though, because you have to go when you're ready.
Right.
Therapy in itself is a lot. Like there's a lot of things that you have to uncover that you don't really want to like either deal with or you've kind of ignored for a while. So
Yeah.
it all kind of just services at the same time. And so while you're trying to process like a certain event, you're actually uncovering a lot of other things as well. So
Yeah.
you have to
True.
be mentally prepared to even go into that because it's a lot of unpacking. And if you're not ready to unpack and you're just trying to be a bag lady and, carry those bags, which there's nothing wrong with that either. You handle life however you want to. But I think in this specific situation, not only did you handle what was going on in your personal life, but even in your professional life, people outside of our friendship would have never known that you were dealing with this because you were so quiet about it. Of course, you don't post much about your personal life on social media anyways. So this was something like as a friend, it was really hard to watch you go through. And of course, like I want to be there as much as possible, but I also didn't want to be overbearing and just make you talk about it if you didn't want to. I know when I went through my experience, it was like I just felt very alone, and I almost felt like I needed to go through that by myself anyways, because how do I express what I'm dealing with to somebody that either doesn't know, or maybe they might say something negative to hurt my feelings? So it almost felt like I felt safer dealing with it alone. And
Yes.
that's okay too. It's okay to process things by yourself. And then once you process certain things, I think you can open up to other people. But
Yep.
I wanted to give you that time to process all of this on your own. I know for a while you've been wanting to talk about it on the podcast, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. But I could tell you were kind of like, okay, when I'm ready, like we'll do it. So
Because
I'm
I
really,
thought I was. And every time we were like, you're like, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah, I think I am. But you weren't pressuring me. You were just like, I know this is something that you do. Because I mentioned it to you. Like, I do want to talk about it eventually. And so
Mhm.
when you would bring it up, it was more so like, I know that this is something you want to do. Do you want to do it now? And so I appreciated that, because just when I thought I was ready, like I would have moments like, I don't know if I'm ready yet. And
Right.
like today, like I'm actually very shocked that I got through that without like crying. But it
Yeah.
was really emotional.
Yeah, it was really hard, for you to go through something like that. And I know that how strong you are, but at the same time we have to have those moments where we open up to not just to release those emotions, but also to maybe encourage other people, because like you don't know what someone else is going through, and maybe once they hear this they'll be like, oh man, like I can relate to her and I've been there before. I think both of us were in a situation too where our partner wasn't really sure how to handle it either. So fellas, if you're listening to this, understand like you're such an important part of whatever process a woman is going through when she's going through a pregnancy. And it's not just like, you know, you're not just a donor, you're coming in there as a supportive partner as well. And if she's not able to give birth to your child, like just know that that's a lot on the woman. But I think as women too, we need to remember it's a lot on our partner too. There's some men that really hurt when they
Right.
child as well.
Yep.
So, you know, those are all things that we should consider if we're, God forbid, you're ever in that situation. But I commend you for being so strong and even being able to like open up and share this, because it's not an easy thing. That's why I didn't want to pressure you to do it. I knew that in time you were going to be able to do it. And, you know, it's a healing process, and it takes time. I've had friends that have been through similar situations as well. Like, I have a really close friend that unfortunately she actually had to like bury her, you know, baby. And I just can't imagine, you know, the kind of pain that somebody has to go through when you
And
have
probably
to.
still has to feel, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. She has. And very similar to you, she got pregnant afterwards and she was so scared the whole time. Thankfully, you know, she was able to like have another healthy baby. But, you know, if you've been through a situation like this, just know like there's hope. Like, please don't give up. I know that you're saying like you really want another one, but you're scared. And I can totally relate to that. And, you know, it's something that as women, we're scared. Like, I'm 36 and my mom and I were just talking about this, and she's like, well, you know, if you want to have a baby, you better hurry up. You better hurry up. So we always have this like time clock on us that if you want another baby, you got to hurry up. Or if you want a baby, you know, you got to do it by before 40. And it's a lot of pressure on us. You know, it's a lot of pressure. And then, you know, as the older you get, it is harder, you know, to have a healthy pregnancy. So, you know, this is, I think, if anything, I hope this makes you feel like just hopeful, you know, just hopeful that you've gone through the worst part. I feel like whatever goes, you know, forward, it's God's plan. And
I honestly felt guilty going to you a lot of the times, because I also know, like, it's crazy because I felt selfish a little bit going to you, because knowing that how much you tried to have a child, you know? And I'm like, I mean, I know that you always like let me in, you know, but I'm like, I don't know, I felt guilty, just like I felt guilty when I had my son and you had you going through that, you know, situation. But it did help to have someone to go through. But like you said, a lot of the times you feel like just dealing with it on yourself until you're ready to speak about it, because there's so much you're reliving, and then so much you're dealing with. So we're already dealing with the physical. So physically I'm reminded, for a month I bled. So I was reminded every day that I'm still dealing with this, right? And then you got to deal with like the excitement of your kids and how you have to let them down. And my kids still, like specifically my son, he's had a hard time dealing with it still, where he'll bring it up and I'm like having to soak it in. And then when my man, like you said, those things we don't think about. So I felt the guilt of laying that on you, but if there was one person I was always so grateful for, was you. And I think through the trauma bond that I had with you is just, we already have a great friendship, but that was like even more so of a way to get us closer, and without forcing it, you know, it was just something that happened. And so I will forever be grateful for you for that. And I appreciate that you have allowed me to do that, even though in your mind, because it's something you want to do too, you know?
But it is scary, you know, when you've had a miscarriage, or, you know, especially if it's a planned pregnancy, I think that's even harder. I literally saw you go from like having your first miscarriage to then like really trying to have another one. And we were so both excited, and crazy enough, like I remember around that time frame right before, you know, you got the news, I was looking at baby clothes and I really wanted to get you something. But then I also thought, I don't want her to feel like she has to have this at home if something happens. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it was one of those things where you have to tread lightly. And, you know, I wanted to be there as much as possible. But for you, I know how private you are too. You know, as much as we share things with each other, like there's just certain things that, you know, you're private about. And I let you open up like whenever you're ready to. So I knew that if I had given you like some baby stuff, that might have made things worse. And I didn't want to put that on you, you know? So I think that a lot of times, like we have to think about, these things, like you never really know what's going to happen, and it's okay to feel the joy.
Right.
And but being cautious of like, you never know what could happen. And I think that you handled everything so well emotionally and mentally, because even, I mean, obviously physically, like the way you described everything that happened to you, I was just like, wow, like I just couldn't imagine, going through that. And then by yourself, like on top of everything,
man.
because of COVID, you weren't able to like have your partner there or your parents there with you. So, just know like the worst part of it happened. And now you're going to be able to, if you choose to have, more children, that you'll be
Yeah.
able to enjoy the process, but you'll also be
Hopefully.
prepared.
Yeah.
That's the thing is I think for me, I tell myself, if it happens again, then I'll be very happy. And if it doesn't happen, I'm happy too. Either way, I know it's an experience, and that's what God has in store for me. And I just have to like, just be okay with whatever outcome comes
Yeah.
from whatever it is. So
I think we're both in that same boat because we both are like, we've experienced motherhood. And so
right.
we're grateful. So I can't even begin to imagine the women that don't have kids and
Mhm.
want to and can't.
Yeah.
So I am like you, grateful that we got to experience it and we were good with or without being able to conceive again. But like you said, at the end of the day, we will deal with that however it goes or however it's handled to us. But you know
Right.
how people always say, embrace the things that you have in front of you.
Right.
It's easier said than done. So like, yes, I embrace what I have, but it's like, I really want this too. So to any mother that's going through it, because I know we've talked a lot and we have things to do. I know Angie has to leave right now. To anyone mother that's gone through this, just know there are people you can talk to. I'm just now learning on how to express myself. I really thought I was going to get through this without crying, but it is a lot, it is a lot. So it's a lot, but I'm definitely, even though I cried, I'm in a better place. Like, even though I did get emotional, I can 100% tell you I'm in a better place. I just know the steps I need to do to get myself better. So like, I know I want to do therapy, so I'm going to do it eventually. But I am in a better place. I cried, yes, but I'm okay. Like I know that there's things like, but like you said, I never thought about this when it comes to therapy, that you go in for one thing and then you unmask all these other things. Like when you were saying that right now, I was like, oh shit, I thought I was ready for therapy, but you're right. They're going to unmask all these things. Am I ready for that? So maybe I'm going to give it some time, but I am in a better place. I just wanted to talk about it because I know that we kind of we never went back to that conversation. So that's what we were dealing with in 2020. And that's why we decided to take a break and come back. So the good thing is we're both in better places. And I know that we went on forever. We'll eventually touch on this again, because I would also like to talk about the experience that you dealt with, because it is very different from mine, but still as a mother, we feel the same things in different ways. So but thank you again, Angie, for always being there for me. You're my therapist. That's why I don't get
No, likewise, girl. I remember, I think it was like, I can't remember. It was a couple episodes ago where I kind of like opened up about some stuff. And I remember telling you like, it was hard, but it felt good to be able to open
afterwards,
up.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure when you listen back, or maybe when we start getting feedback from our listeners, you'll feel like, oh, I'm so glad I was open about that. Like being
Like, get it
vulnerable
off me already. Yeah.
yeah, because being vulnerable is challenging.
It is.
And to open up as much as you have, especially like on this episode, I know it took a lot from you, but I know that it's going to make you feel so much better. And you've just always been like, for me, when it comes to our friendship, I know that I can literally share anything with you and you'll be like, yeah, I get it. Like, I totally understand where you're coming from. And I think that that's really important, that if you're listening to this, this isn't like I'm sharing this, because people need to know about my life. It's like, it's really hard to open up about these kinds of things, but there are people that have gone through it or are going through it, or God forbid you deal with it. At least you'll know how to handle it. And hopefully, we've been able to shed some light on some stuff that, maybe most people are like scared to like open up about, but I'm proud of you for doing it.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and have a smoke session a little bit later. I'm gonna hit you up and be like, girl, we did that. Because
I'm rolling up as we speak. I'm rolling up the pre one, and then I'm rolling up the real one, and then
Okay, there it is. So later on, it's funny because we have smoke sessions one with like virtually. We don't really do it like we have it in a minute in person because my ass don't know how to function with it. And like, if we're gonna do it, I'm like, I have to be by my bed if we're gonna do it. Okay. But yeah, thank you again for allowing me to open up. Like I said, we got things to do. Angie's already hella late to wherever she had to go. So we thank you so much to everyone who joined us. Please, if you have any suggestions on what we can do to help other women, let us know, because if there's information about how people can deal with traumas like this, we'd love to share it. So please do so. Again, thank you to everyone who shares our information, whether it's on social media, every platform, every like, every download. It does a lot for us. So thank you again. Thank you, Angie. I will talk to you after this. Bye, guys.
Bye.